Parents are hunting for baby formula as shortage spans U.S. Baby formula. That is not a good thing to run out of. It's been a lot of years since I've been confronted with baby formula, and at one point in time, it was a thing in my life. My ex-wife couldn't get the whole breast milk thing to work out. So formula, it was important. It's what you're feeding your kid, right? We've got a shortage going on. Doesn't it seem? I did a podcast a while ago on the crazy accidents happening at food processing plants. President Biden says, we're going to have a food shortage. A lot of folks saying we're having a food shortage. One of the podcasts I did early on in the pandemic was, we're going to have a shortage of bacon. And people lost their minds on that one. Probably not as much on baby formula. But man, if you've got a baby and you've been feeding it formula and all of a sudden you can't, not good. Let's just put it that way. All right, before we get into it, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies here in Seattle, Washington. I read what some would consider news for reasonable people. All right, let's do this. Such a ridiculous title for a podcast. And yet it kind of makes sense, right? All right, I'm reasonable. You're reasonable. Let's talk about the news. Parents across the U.S. are scrambling to find baby formula because supply disruptions and a massive safety recall have swept many leading brands off store shelves. Months of spot shortages at pharmacies and supermarkets have been exacerbated by the recall at Abbott. Abbott, which was forced to shutter its largest U.S. formula manufacturing plant in February due to contamination concerns. Not good. Not good. That's probably the last thing you want contaminated is your baby's formula. It's the only thing they're drinking. I remember with my oldest son, my task was to try and hold things together as best I could when he was very, very young to do the 4 a.m. feeding, I think it was, give my wife a break. I was working literally around the clock because I had this brand new baby when I was, 24, I think it was, 23, 24, young enough to know I was in trouble and young enough to work my way through that. It's what you do. You don't bail and, let her work on that. Now, we were married. We wanted to have kids. I was young enough where I was like, all right, we're just going to have these babies and we're just going to do this and we're going to figure out all the rest later. But baby formula was important because that's what your kid was eating. And if your kid didn't eat it, they were hungry. And then you were up all night and just, this ongoing train wreck, which is little kids, because there's always something going on, right? I mean, you're always so fearful something's going to happen to your kid. So formula, yeah, pretty important because that's all your baby's eating. If the kid's on, maybe you're doing a little bit of breastfeeding and a little bit of formula. I know this is information the majority of you, 30, 40 years past needing to know any of this stuff or care. But it's one of those things where we've got, these ongoing concerns about, all right, gas is really expensive. Now we're not having enough food. Bacon, that's not good. Baby formula, not a good one. On Monday, White House Press Secretary Jenn Psaki said the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, was working around the clock to address any possible shortages. Why is the White House always saying this stuff when in fact they just have no idea what they're doing? I mean, what does that even mean? The Food and Drug Administration, they're going to work real hard. I mean, you're going to make a company figure it out. The company is already, its main line of goods, right, is down. This is not good PR for them. Of course, they're working around the clock to do that. But then the White House press secretary, has got to say something, right? Oh, we're going around the clock. We're going to figure this out. All right. And the gas prices are Putin's fault. Interesting. On Tuesday, the FDA said it was working with U.S. manufacturers to increase their output and streamlining paperwork to allow more imports. Okay. All right. For now, pediatricians, I didn't realize that the baby formula game was controlled by so few players. Otherwise, this just wouldn't really be an issue, would it? But apparently Abbott has got the total control on this market. Is that good? It doesn't feel like it, right? I mean, I don't have any babies, but I know people that do, and sometimes they rely on formula because it's all their kid is eating. For now, pediatricians and health workers are urging patients who can't find formula to contact food banks or doctors' offices. Are your kids starving? Why don't you run down to the food bank? Maybe they'll have some there. Maybe you should just contact a random doctor's office. Hey, you got any formula? And this is their answer. Don't you think a lot of other people have probably thought about that already? That was my first thought was, oh, that's not good. They warn against watering down formula to stretch supplies or using online do-it-yourself recipes. Okay, my first thought there is there really an online do-it-yourself recipe for baby formula? Okay. I mean, do what you got to do, right? Just don't kill your kid. That's not good. For babies who are make them really sick, that's not good either. For babies who are not being breastfed, this is the only thing they eat, said Dr. Stephen Abrams of the University of Texas, Austin. So it has to have I love it when really smart people with all these degrees and stuff say just wildly obvious things that you can actually understand. It's the only thing they eat. Oh, yeah, that does make sense. That's why this is critical. So it has to have all the other nutrition, and furthermore, it needs to be properly prepared so that it's safe for the smallest infants. You got to get that temperature just right? You got to boil it up. Make sure that you boil it. I'm going off memory here. I haven't done this for roughly 28 years. My kid turned 29 this year. You got to boil it up, and then you got to take the bottle and you got to shake it on your wrist. I can't really remember what that was for. I think that was for making sure it wasn't scalding hot, because you scalding your wrist much better than your kid scalding his mouth. Oof, train wreck there. You're going to be up for hours and days and weeks if that happens. Trying to keep formula in stock, retailers, including CVS and Walgreens, have begun limiting purchases to 3 containers per customer. We've got a run on baby food in aisle 7. This is apparently a real thing. I got to go to the store later. I'm going to look around. I'm going to do some investigative reporting. You got any baby formula, or is it all gone? Nationwide, about 40% of large retail stores are out of stock. 40%. And that's up from 31% in mid-April, according to Data Assembly, a data analytics firm. More than half of U.S. states are seeing out-of-stock rates between 40% and 50%. This is the real deal. That is scary. For all you parents out there scrambling, man, I feel for you. This is just not cool. That's a wild understatement, isn't it? Yeah. A blinding glimpse of the obvious. That came from Barbarians at the Gate. F. Ross Johnson. He was the CEO of RJR Nabisco, I think. Baby formula is particularly vulnerable to disruptions because just a handful of companies account for almost the entire U.S. supply. Maybe we should rethink that. I don't know. Industry executives say the constraints began last year as the COVID-19 pandemic led to disruptions in ingredients, labor, and transportation. So supply chain, right? Oh, I can't get it. Supplies were further squeezed by parents stockpiling during lockdowns. That makes sense. I mean, if you don't know you're going to have stuff, I guess I never thought about stockpiling formula. Formula is one of those things where, you buy all these things and all these cans, and then your kid just starts randomly eating solid foods. And you're like, well, I guess we're past the formula stage. It's one of those quick things that happens in life, isn't it? Like all of a sudden you're one day just doing the bottle, you're dropping the stuff on your wrist, hoping that you don't get scalded for life. And then all of a sudden you're not. It's kind of like when your kid gets out of diapers. You're like, you're so grateful that you don't have to do diapers anymore. There's going to be a couple more incidences where they just crap their pants and there's not much you can do about it. All right, little Johnny. Yeah, that's not good. Go in the toilet like we've been working on. You got to get those repetitions in, get them potty trained. So it's one of those little kid things where formula, oh, hey, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. Then in February, Abbott recalled several major brands and shut down. They recalled several major brands and they shut down its Sturgis, Michigan factory when federal officials concluded 4 babies suffered from bacterial infections after consuming formula from the facility. 2 of the infants died. Ugh, that's horrible. Horrible. Healthy babies die because they ingested something that their parents thought was, how would they know? When FDA inspectors visited the plant in March, they found lax safety protocols and traces of the bacteria on several surfaces. None of the bacterial strains matched those collected from the infants, however, and the FDA hasn't offered an explanation for how the contamination occurred. For its part, Abbott says its formula is not likely the source of infection, though the FDA says its investigation continues. Don't you love these government investigations? And they always come out with there's no wrongdoing, but they're going to pay a $110,000 fine towards something over here. It's kind of like the other day it was announced that, we had the whole mayor deal where all of Mayor Durkan of Seattle, all of her texts regarding the CHOP incident and who gave authorization for the police to abandon the East Precinct so that CHOP could be created. There's a big raging battle and debate over what happened to her text messages. Oh, they disappeared. They were gone along with the fire chief, along with the police chief, a bunch of other executives in charge of Seattle. Interesting. So, but yeah, rest assured, there was no wrongdoing, but the city of Seattle is going to do better with their retainment of information because it's against the law to delete text like that, but they did it anyway. The city of Seattle is going to pay $200,000 fine and it's all good. We never know who, did the authorization to abandon the East Precinct of CHOP. Interesting. Yeah. Food safety advocates say the FDA made the right call in releasing the formula, but that parents should talk to their pediatricians before using it. Isn't that kind of do your own due diligence when it comes to your kid? There's still some risk from the formula because we know there are problems at the plant and the FDA hasn't identified a root cause. That is not good. That's rather disconcerting. But it's worth releasing because these infants might die without it. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Release it. Okay, it kills some kids. Don't release it. Kids starve. There's no easy go in this one, is there? So they're working at getting more of the baby formula out. It's going to take some time. In the meantime, contact your local food bank or a doctor who might have some. Got a feeling that those reserves have been long depleted. So I don't even know what you do at that point, right? Just crazy that this is a storyline. But, we had the whole bacon thing and we've had what else do we have? There was some other industry. Oh, chickens lately. Chickens. One chicken plant had to burn, I think it was in the millions of chickens because they got some disease and it was spreading and horrible. I hope we don't have a shortage on chicken. I like chicken too. Chicken and bacon. I mean, those are some of the staples of life, right? And literally for babies who are doing the formula thing, because that's how their parents are feeding them, literally food of life. So you parents out there, I hope that this doesn't impact you too much. Love to hear if that has been a thing in your life. What did you do to come up with the missing formula that you would normally have available to you at your grocery store and it's not there? You're in that area where there's 40 or 50% are sold out. What did you do? Love to hear that. So yeah, that's it on this one. Thank you so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. We'll talk on the next one. News for reasonable people. It's a thing. Thanks again. Bye for now.